Imagine meeting your childhood best friend again years later, only to discover that he has undergone an unimaginable transformation. This is the story of Hunter and Abigail, whose friendship has been tested in ways they could never have foreseen. Together, they navigate the turbulent waters of change, prejudice, and rediscovery on a journey that leads them to an unexpected and profound love. In that phase of life when everything seems intense and eternal, Kevin was the companion of every hour, the accomplice of the adventures and misadventures typical of adolescence. Every day at his side was a new page in our memory book, full of episodes that ranged from the hilarious to the touching. Our laughter echoed through the corridors. Our secrets were kept under lock and key, and together we dreamed big, drawing fantastic futures in conversations that stretched into the night. Kevin wasn't just a friend. He was the lighthouse that guided me through the storms, the voice that brought me back when I lost myself in the doubts that plague youth. With him, I had the freedom to be exactly who I was, without masks or pretenses. It was a friendship that allowed us to explore our identities, laugh at our flaws, and grow side by side. Our discussions went far beyond schoolwork or the latest gossip. We talked about everything that touched us, from the challenges we faced at home to our wildest aspiration. Kevin had this knack of making any subject seem important and worthy of hours of debate, and, somehow, he always knew what to say to make any problem seem smaller, more manageable. When it came to school romances, it was Kevin to whom I confided my most confused and intense feelings. He was the first to know when I was in love, sharing with me the anxiety of a first date, the euphoria of a smile in return, and even the pain of broken hearts. In those moments, his presence was a consolation, his empathy a balm. With him, every love experience became a shared adventure, a story that we added to our treasure trove of joint memories. In retrospect, I see that our friendship was the fertile soil in which I was able to plant and cultivate my roots, gaining the strength to reach for the sky. Kevin was more than a friend. He was an essential part of who I am, a piece of my story that, no matter how the next chapters unfolded, would always remain vibrant and colorful. A constant reminder of the ties that bound us together during those formative years. As in a beloved book, we reach that inevitable page that precedes the end of a beloved chapter. The end of high school marked the beginning of a new era, imposing a bifurcation in our paths which, until then, had been inseparable. Kevin, following the call of his dreams, embarked on a journey to a university in a distant state, a place that, despite being in the same country, seemed to be in another dimension. So vast was the distance between us. I remained in our hometown, rooted not only by the memories we shared on every street corner, but also by my vocation, biology, which had fascinated me from an early age with its mysteries and wonders, became the focus of my studies. I plunged headlong into books and research, seeking in science a consolation for the absence of the friend with whom I had shared so many discoveries. Physical distance, implacable and insensitive, began to take its toll, eroding the bridges of our daily communication. The frequent calls and long conversations, which once flowed effortlessly, gradually gave way to a silence filled with longing. Those rich and vibrant interactions, full of laughter and confidences, turned into sporadic exchanges, until the voices we knew so well became distant echoes, reverberating in an increasingly hazy past. Our friendship, which had been so alive and present, began to acquire the ethereal quality of a relic, a precious jewel from a simpler time that we kept in the drawers of our memory. Life, with its demands and new challenges, imposed itself on the innocence of our promises of eternal friendship, showing us that, however much we might wish it, not all of life's chapters are written together. This farewell chapter, although tinged with melancholy, was not marked by a dramatic goodbye or words of departure. Instead, it was a smooth transition, a gradual departure that we only realized once it was over. The friendship we shared, now encapsulated in the golden pages of our youth, became a treasure to be revisited, a reminder of times of shared joy and of a connection that, despite distance and time, would remain in our hearts for 6 long years. Life unfolded in a series of routines and novelties, a mosaic of experiences that shaped me and led me down unexpected paths. Kevin's absence, although always felt, became an accepted part of my reality, a sweet yet painful reminder of a simpler time. the marks of time and the responsibilities of adult life filled the void left by his departure, but in some corner of my being, the memory of our friendship remained intact, preserved like a photograph faded by the passage of time. One evening, which promised no more than the usual casual fun and relaxation with friends, I found myself in the local bar, one of those comfortably familiar places, filled with laughter and lively conversation. The music, a vibrant backdrop to the ephemeral interactions and chance encounters, created an atmosphere of carefree freedom. It was in this setting, between sips and laughter, that my eyes found Abigail. She was somehow distinct from all the faces in the crowd, a presence that seemed to shine with a light of its own in the dimness of the bar. Abigail had a beauty that captivated, yes, but it was more than the symmetry of her face or the grace of her movements that captured my attention. There was an aura around her, a magnetism that attracted me in an inexplicable way, a feeling of enigmatic familiarity that left me intrigued and, at the same time, deeply fascinated. That first meeting, marked by shyness and hesitation on my part, was the prelude to a story I could never have imagined. Abigail, with her enigmatic presence and her beauty that defied the simplicity of the night, became the focus of my attention, a riddle shrouded in mystery that I felt, in some inexplicable way, a deep need to unravel. It was as if, between the notes of the music and the buzz of conversation, an invisible line was pulling me towards her, instigating a curiosity that went beyond the visual, touching deep strings of my being that I hardly knew existed. In that vibrant atmosphere, where every laugh and melody seemed to weave the fabric of a carefree evening, my shyness stood like a fortress, keeping me on the fringes of the social stage on which so many seemed to dance with ease. Abigail, with her magnetic presence, was like a distant star whose light I admired but felt unable to reach. My heart beat at an accelerated pace, an out-of-step orchestra playing the symphony of hesitation. I berated myself internally for not being able to overcome the invisible barrier that my own nature had erected, a wall of silence and inaction that separated me from a story I longed to live. But fate, that cunning weaver of coincidences and encounters, had other plans for us. It was Abigail who, defying the odds, crossed the distance that separated us, driven by a force that I still didn't understand. Her approach was like a beacon, cutting through the fog of my inertia, a silent invitation to a long-delayed dialogue. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of countless unlived moments, awakening in me a sense of déjà vu, as if those words were keys that opened the doors of a sealed memory. "Don't you recognize me, Hunter?" The question, although simple, reverberated with layers of meaning, echoing through the void that distance and time had created between us. His eyes, illuminated by a faint hope, searched mine for something I didn't yet know I had to offer. This interaction, brief but loaded with immense emotional weight, was the thread that began to unravel the skein of a complex story that was deeply intertwined with my own. There was a mixture of vulnerability and courage in that look, a bridge thrown over the abyss of the unknown, inviting me to cross it and discover the unexplored territory that lay beyond. At that moment, the shyness that had previously paralyzed me began to dissipate, melted by the intensity of a connection that transcended the barriers of time and silence, heralding the start of a new journey in which past and present intertwined in an unexpected way. The revelation that followed was like a bolt of lightning, tearing through the night sky, illuminating with stark clarity the truth I wasn't prepared to face. Kevin, the friend with whom I shared the most carefree days and the most intimate confidences, had gone through a monumental journey away from my eyes, emerging from this personal odyssey as Abigail, with palpable vulnerability. She unfolded the narrative of her transformation, a story marked by courage and the relentless search for authenticity. She spoke of the feeling of being at odds with her own reflection, of living a life that didn't belong to her, until the distance from her hometown and the anonymity of a new place gave her the freedom to reinvent herself, to finally align her essence with her existence. My mind, stunned by the magnitude of what Abigail was sharing, struggled to assimilate the reality before me. Confusion gave way to irrational indignation, a whirlwind of emotions that blinded me to empathy and understanding. Harsh words, the result of a defensive reflex to what I didn't fully understand, broke through the barrier of my lips before I could ponder their cruelty or their impact. Those words, sharp as blades, not only cut the air between us, but also the delicate fabric of the new relationship we were beginning to weave. The end of that evening was as abrupt as a book that closes with a bang, leaving its characters suspended in the vacuum of an unfinished chapter. A chasm had formed between us, dug by the harsh words and the surprising revelation, full of unexpressed hurt and deep dismay. The farewell, marked by a heavy silence and averted gazes, sealed the encounter with a bitter end, leaving me alone with the echo of my own words and the sudden awareness of the mistake I had made. In that moment of solitary reflection, shame took the place of initial surprise, tinging my memories of the evening with the hue of regret. Abigail's revelation, instead of being greeted with the compassion and support it deserved, was met with a resistance I would never have imagined in myself. The storm that raged that night was not only that of revelation, but also that of the discovery of parts of myself that I didn't know. An unexplored inner terrain that night began to unravel. In the days that followed that tumultuous night, Abigail's image became a constant presence in my mind, a ghost that refused to be ignored. Every moment of silence was filled with memories of her. Her gaze filled with hope and vulnerability, and the words we exchanged, some warm, others as cold as ice. It was as if an internal storm had been unleashed, a gale of conflicting emotions that swept across the landscape inside me, leaving a trail of doubts and regrets in its wake. As the days passed, the initial confusion began to dissipate, giving way to a process of deep introspection. I entered an almost meditative state of reflection, reliving not only our last meeting, but also the countless moments shared with Kevin before his transformation. This journey through the labyrinth of my memories and feelings revealed the truth that I had overlooked in that first shock. The essence of the person that Kevin had always been, and that Abigail still represented, remained the same. The friendship we valued, the bonds we had built, had not changed in essence, only the context had changed. With this clarity also came the acute awareness of the injustice I had committed. My impulsive reaction and the harsh words I hurled at Abigail were not just a reflection of my discomfort with the unknown, but a failure in my duty to empathize and support a friend in a moment of extreme vulnerability. The magnitude of my mistake weighed heavily on me, a guilt that grew heavier with each passing day without action, driven by a sense of responsibility and a desire to repair the damage I had caused. I decided to reach out to Abigail. It was imperative that I express my regret, that I offer her the apology she deserved to hear. My heart, although heavy with anticipation of the meeting, was firm in its determination to right my wrong. I needed to face the consequences of my actions, regardless of how uncomfortable it might be. The search for Abigail was guided not only by the desire to apologize, but also by the need to show my support for her new identity, to reaffirm our bond of friendship in this new light. It was crucial for me that she knew that, despite her initial stumble, I was willing to learn, to understand and, above all, to stand by her side in this new phase of her life. It was a path to redemption, both for me and for the friendship I valued so much and hoped to rebuild. When I finally plucked up the courage to face Abigail and the shadows of my mistake, she welcomed me with a generosity and dignity that I knew I didn't deserve. In her posture and in her gaze, there was an earned serenity, a balance forged in the countless times she had to stand up against the tide of judgments and misunderstandings. Abigail shared with me, with soul-crushing frankness, how every step of her journey had been peppered with moments of rejection, but how, through these storms, she had learned the art of resilience, to sail confidently on seas that were once stormy with misunderstanding. Our reunion, although marked by the shadow of the past, slowly opened up like a flower at dawn. Conversations, initially punctuated by mutual caution, began to flow more freely as trust was rebuilt brick by brick. We rediscovered, in every word and laugh shared, the foundations of the friendship that had defined our youth. It was as if we were sailing down a familiar river, recognizing the bends and currents, but surprising ourselves with new landscapes along the banks. In this process of rediscovery, something beautiful and unexpected began to unfold between us. Childhood memories, intertwined with the experiences and revelations of the present, formed the fertile soil for the growth of a new feeling, Something deeper and more complex than the pure friendship we had known. This new feeling, which began as a timid seed, blossomed under the warmth of mutual understanding and acceptance, blossoming into a love that neither of us could have anticipated. Today, Abigail and I look to the future with hopeful eyes and entwined hearts. We are no longer just two people who shared a past. We are companions who have chosen to build a future together, weaving the dreams we once told under the starry blanket of the night sky. This love, born from the ashes of a misunderstanding and nurtured by the strength of a newfound friendship, is the testimony of our shared journey, a promise that, together, we can face the challenges that destiny imposes on us, always remembering that true value lies not only in the joys we share, but also in the storms we face side by side.